Welcome to ETHDam, to ETHDam, to ETHDam, to ETHDam, to ETHDam.
Everybody hear me? Yay!
No?
Okay,
You sure?
this is going to be a bit out of left field, so
If you're
enjoy.
like 5:45, you can come in and.
I am a doctor, twice over. Let's see. One is mail order. I'm actually, let's see, is this going to work? Maybe? Okay. Right, so this is about cypherpunk and the law. Not a lot of law, but definitely some stuff about internet regulation. Oh, okay, you switched. Yeah. Great. So, cyberpunk. Who knows what cyberpunk is? Maybe? Yeah? A bit. Science fiction, started as literary, with a lot of sci-fi novels, then went into film. It's high-tech, low-life. It's typically a dystopian near future. And then, you know, there's usually the standard dramatic story arc with a protagonist against, you know, whoever the antagonists have to be. There's going to be a lot of cats in this as well. Cypherpunk, of course, I shouldn't have to really tell to this audience. Just think code as activism. Now, what's the timeline between these two sort of trends? The main takeaway is just cyberpunk is older than cypherpunk, right? So 1984-ish for cyberpunk. So between the two movements, and if you think about all the punks, you think, if you like to think in binaries, which I know a lot of programmers do, zeros and ones, dystopia or utopia, I would argue there's always a third option, so meh. But cyberpunk and cypherpunk are fundamentally dystopian, right? So they look at the future and see that it's going to be fucked up. Solarpunk, I see, is a utopian movement looking at the future and saying we're going to build this next new beautiful future. Cypherpunk, within a dramatic story structure, right, is the protagonist, actually, I would argue, in cyberpunk's story arc. Okay. So, this is where I do a little bit of magic. Idea space. Who knows Alan Moore? Reads comic books like V for Vendetta, etc., right? So Alan Moore comes up with a lot of great comics that a lot of them have been made into movies, a lot of them which you've seen. So when asked about his ideas, Alan Moore believes that idea space is a real space. So when you're going and you're thinking about things, so you can think about, I don't know, the invention of the light bulb or whatever characters or coding, that there's actually this place he goes to and he plucks out ideas from this place. So they're there as an unconscious metaverse, so a second life or insert metaverse here, where you can discover ideas. Now, chaos magic is like a branch of magic or a belief system or a religion, is that beliefs can condition perception. Therefore, you can change the world around you by changing your belief system, right? So if you're really into conspiracy theories, everything's a conspiracy theory. If you don't believe that chaos magic is a real working thing in culture today, Google manifestation, right? A lot of people are really into the idea, or they may say, I manifested this or that, right? Keyboard cat. So this is the idea, it's a long-standing idea, been a lot of research on culture about memes about like different cultural things. Maybe it's a particular technology or a cultural idea behaving like viruses, right? So memes are media viruses. So what do you get when you put it all together? Cyberpunk is an idea that came out of idea space. Media viruses are running amok, so it behaves like a virus and it's influencing our reality as it is today. Or to say it with cats, you're monkeying around in idea space, finding an idea, you pull out a particularly virulent viral strain, and it has an impact on the real world. So back to Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk is a virus. It's done actually really well. So this is my not very convincing data chart. Hockey stick, lots of cyberpunk, right? I would argue that it's not necessarily the good kind of virus. So it's dystopian. Typically, the landscape in this dystopian hell for films like Johnny Mnemonic, The Matrix, etc. There's a lot of corporate oligarchs. There's great disparity in wealth. There's technologies, but they benefit the few and not the many. And there's lots of systems of control. So that's Burroughs up there. He's very big on control. But the tech is sick, and a lot of you use the tech, like the tech, follow the tech. We can all agree there, right? I call this virus the Dystopian Cyber Future 84, DCF 84 for the rest of the talk, because you have to have TLAs, 3-letter acronyms, whenever you're giving a talk at a tech thing. So now we're going to jump over to generations. Now, this map is, of course, biased towards the West and a very particular view about generations, but you've, of course, got the Lost Generation, the Greatest Generation, and the GI Generation, having just celebrated 80 years at the end of World War II, all the way up through the Boomers, which a lot of people talk about, Gen X, which is actually my generation, Millennials, Zoomers, and then Alpha, right? So if you think about the arc of the infection rates or the spread of DCF 84, and you compare it with the generations, my hypothesis is that Gen X and Millennials have high infection rates of DCF 84. So here it is in another graph. Right, data point. Zuckerberg calls his company Meta. The metaverse is actually, as a term, was coined in Snow Crash, which is a cyberpunk novel from '93. This guy, of course, this guy's baby mama, Grimes, who has a song called I Want to Be Software, right? So what? So my hypothesis is, if you think in Web 1, Web 2, Web 3 terms, that the internet of the 90s into the 2000s was actually shaped by the generation before, and they were fundamentally, especially the builders of the internet, infected with a very optimism virus. So they were very much utopians. My data points for this is the gentleman on the left. Who knows who that is? Anyone? That's John Perry Barlow. He's one of the founders of the Electronic Frontier Foundation, which I see a few nods. He drafted something in the 90s called the Declaration of Independence for Cyberspace, which you should all read just for shits and giggles. He's also a lyricist for the Grateful Dead. Hippie. Second one in, who knows who that is? You should. It's a Cypherpunk conference. That's John Gilmore. He's one of the original Cypherpunks. Also founded EFF. This guy on the right is Larry Lessig. He, in addition to finding Creative Commons, which is legal tools for, we talk a lot about open source at this event, but doing open content and so on. He founded Creative Commons along with some other people, and has done a lot of work on legal things around this area. So, some other loose facts. Legislatures are now just having Gen X and Millennials represented in them, right? Zoomers generally are too young for a lot of legislatures because of age restrictions, but there are a few. Now, this is from not the current Congress in the US, but the one before. But you can see overwhelmingly actually boomers, right? And if you think that this isn't relevant to thinking about internet regulation, this guy on the bottom is Strom Thurmond. He lived to 102 almost. He died in office, right? So he's a representative from South Carolina. And in the 60s, he's one of the people that filibustered, so protested against racial equality in the U.S. And he also, continued to vote on many of the laws that are with us today in the 90s on the first part of internet regulation. So my hypothesis is just Web3, right? So all the technology that we're talking about, and that's been a theme throughout this conference, is built by the hero protagonist. It's the infrastructure, at least, is there for the cypherpunk ideals. But the tech has been co-opted by those infected with DCF84 and regulated by people with old models, right, with generations before. But in the future, if you look ahead, as more Gen Xers and millennials start taking up more and more positions of power within legislatures, executive branches, et cetera, you're going to see people with more and more infection rates of DCF84 looking to make these decisions. And you can look at that dystopian cyber future, right? And say, I don't want that to happen. I'm going to develop tools or put my effort and time into preventing it from happening. Or you can say, the tech's sick. Actually, the life of a corporate oligarch is pretty good. I think I'm going to try to go for that route. So what to do? So those two gentlemen, boomers, really involved with the early days of the internet in many different ways. They started the Electronic Frontier Foundation. We heard this morning from PG about all the different disparate groups in the privacy space. This is an OG one. This gentleman has a thing called pathetic dot theory, which probably most of you haven't heard of, but is worth looking at in terms of how internet technology, et cetera, gets regulated. I'll quickly go through it. You have the law, obviously. You have the architecture, which is the codes, norms, and the market. So 2 recommendations. Actually, within the space more broadly, maybe not investing in privacy coins as we heard in the keynote last night, but within the space more broadly, there is a lot of money there. So I know a lot of the focus is on building the tech. That's good. That's part of the puzzle. But actually taking some of the money that you may make or the time and effort that you may have to give and putting it into organizations that can help influence regulation or law, or maybe perhaps even standing for an election yourself. Those are the kinds of things that will make a difference. There's been, I think we did the survey yesterday where we talked about what are some of the problems with privacy. These are a lot of the things that come up. The norms part, like I hear a lot of complaints that people don't value privacy, they're not using the tools that we're building. This, I think, is a big focus because it's not the architecture that's being built, it's really focusing on the human and the culture and the behavior behind it. So, that's it. Thank you. And there's a minute 30 for questions.
Thank you, Dr. Jordan. Spoke like a real doctor right there. If you have any questions, you can ask him outside.
Right.
I
have a minute.
I know, but like actually...